In the year 2245, humanity had made a breakthrough that would change the course of history. Deep beneath the Earth's surface, scientists had discovered a source of energy so powerful that it could revolutionize space travel, power entire planets, and shift the balance of power in the galaxy. Dr. Elijah Dune, a brilliant scientist, had developed the voltaic core system, a way to safely harness and distribute the energy from Earth's core to remote locations in space without the need for refueling or conventional energy sources. The world was abuzz with excitement, but not everyone saw this discovery as a cause for celebration. While humans viewed it as a key to progress, the alien races of the galaxy saw it as a potential threat or an opportunity, depending on their perspective. At a grand conference held aboard the Terra Nova, Earth's largest space station, representatives from various species gathered to witness the presentation. The tension was palpable as Dr. Dune stepped forward, ready to reveal the future of energy. "Ladies and gentlemen, esteemed delegates," he began, "what you are about to see is more than just a new form of power. It is the next step in humanity's evolution and our gift to the galaxy." The holographic display behind him came to life, showing intricate diagrams of the voltaic core system. The energy pulsed like a beating heart, mesmerizing the crowd. "The voltaic core system," Dr. Dune continued, "allows us to harness the geothermal energy from Earth's core and transfer it remotely through quantum entanglement. With this technology, we can power starships, colonies, and entire space stations without the need for conventional fuel." Among the alien delegates, there were mixed reactions. The Valen, a peaceful species known for their diplomatic prowess, exchanged approving glances. Their diplomat, Arian Klin, nodded thoughtfully. "This could usher in an age of cooperation and peace," Arian whispered to his aide. However, not all shared his optimism. In the shadows, Zoran Malik, leader of the Axdora, a more aggressive alien faction, watched with narrowed eyes. His thoughts were far from peaceful collaboration. Zoran had no intention of letting Earth keep such a powerful discovery to themselves. As Dr. Dune concluded his presentation, the room erupted in discussion. Some delegates were eager to strike deals, while others, like Zoran, plotted ways to seize the technology by force. Meanwhile, Commander Mira Stark, a decorated military leader, stood on the sidelines, observing the reactions with a keen eye. "We've just painted a target on our backs," Stark muttered under her breath, her hand resting on her sidearm. She knew this was only the beginning of a much larger struggle. The discovery had put Earth at the center of the galaxy's attention, and while some sought cooperation, others saw an opportunity for domination. The race for Earth's energy had begun. The grand hall aboard the Terra Nova buzzed with activity as alien delegates mulled over the implications of Earth's new energy discovery. Talks of diplomacy, alliances, and deals filled the air. But beneath the surface, darker intentions brewed. Commander Mira Stark remained on high alert, knowing all too well that this wasn't just about cooperation. Humanity's newfound power had turned Earth into the most coveted prize in the galaxy. Dr. Elijah Dune stood by a large holographic display, discussing the technical details of the voltaic core system with a group of Valen scientists. Across the room, Arian Klin, the Valen diplomat, approached with an air of calm authority. "Dr. Dune," Arian greeted with a warm smile, "your discovery is truly remarkable. The Valen are eager to discuss a mutually beneficial agreement. We believe in using such technology to promote peace across the galaxy." Dune nodded, appreciating Arian's sincerity. "That's exactly what we hoped for. With the right partnerships, this technology could transform the way we live and interact with the universe." As the conversation between Dune and Arian continued, Zoran Malik, the Axira leader, watched from the shadows, his sharp eyes fixated on the two men. He had no interest in peaceful resolutions. The Axira prided themselves on strength and dominance, and the thought of Earth wielding such power filled him with disdain. Zoran leaned toward his second-in-command Vara, a cunning strategist known for her efficiency in covert operations. They won't give us the technology willingly, Zoran muttered, his voice low and menacing. We need to act before the other factions secure any agreements. Vara nodded in understanding. The infiltration team is ready. We'll move under the cover of night. Zoran's eyes gleamed with a predatory hunger. Good. We'll take what's rightfully ours. Earth won't hold this power over the galaxy for long. Back in the center of the room, the Valan and human delegates discussed trade routes and potential ways to share the energy without compromising Earth's security. Commander Stark, however, was not as trusting. She had her reservations about letting Earth's technology out of their hands. She approached Dr. Dune, her expression stern. You're making promises that could come back to haunt us, Doctor. We can't let this technology fall into the wrong hands. Dune, ever the optimist, sighed. I understand your concerns, Commander, but this is an opportunity for unity. If we don't share it, we risk alienating our allies. Worse, we may provoke those who want to take it by force. Stark's eyes flickered with resolve. Then we need to make sure no one gets close enough to take it. Later that evening, while most of the delegates had retired to their quarters, a stealthy operation was already in motion. Hidden aboard a Xyra ship cloaked just outside of Earth's orbital defenses, Zoran's infiltration team prepared for their mission. They were elite warriors, trained in the art of silent warfare, and equipped with advanced cloaking technology that rendered them nearly invisible to human sensors. As they began their descent to Earth, Commander Stark was in her private quarters, reviewing security protocols. She'd have been restless all day, unable to shake the feeling that something was off. A message from her security chief, Lieutenant Pierce, flashed on her screen. Commander, we've detected some unusual energy signatures near our upper atmosphere. It could be nothing, but we're keeping an eye on it. Stark's gut instinct kicked in. Double the patrols. I want every entry point to Earth monitored closely. No one gets through without our knowing. Little did Stark know. Zoran's team was already slipping past Earth's defenses, their ships cloaked and undetectable. They landed silently in a remote area of Earth, far from the bustling cities and military bases. Their target, the heart of Earth's energy facility, where the voltaic core system was housed. As the Xyra operatives began their infiltration inside the facility, Dr. Dune was working late, reviewing energy output data. Unaware of the impending threat, he was focused on refining the system to be even more efficient. The facility's security systems hummed in the background, a comforting sound in the otherwise quiet building. But the peace wouldn't last. In the shadows, Zoran's team moved swiftly through the facility's outer defenses, disabling alarms and avoiding security cameras with practiced ease. Their goal was simple: steal the schematics of the voltaic core system and escape before anyone realized what had happened. Meanwhile, on the Terra Nova, Arian Klein sensed that something was amiss. He had seen Zoran's calculating gaze during the day's meetings, and knew that Xyra leader wasn't one to negotiate in good faith. Arian quickly contacted Commander Stark, warning her of his suspicions. Commander, Arian's voice crackled over the communicator. I believe Zoran may be planning something. His intentions were far from peaceful during today's discussions. Stark's face hardened. You're not the only one with that feeling. I've already increased security, but I'll make sure our ground teams are on high alert. As she ended the call, alarms began to blare throughout the base. Stark's worst fears had come true. The Xyra were already inside. They're here, Stark muttered, grabbing her sidearm and rushing out of her quarters. She quickly dispatched orders to her security teams. Contain the breach. No one gets out with that technology. Down below, Zoran's team had made it deep into the facility, dangerously close to the core chamber. But Stark's forces were fast. A firefight broke out in the sterile halls of the energy facility, lasers cutting through the air as Earth's defenders clashed with the Xyra infiltrators. Zoran, watching from his ship in orbit, smirked. Let's see how well your defenses hold, Commander Stark. The battle for Earth's core technology had just begun. The tension inside Earth's high-security energy facility was palpable. The Axira operatives, highly trained and equipped with advanced cloaking technology, had made it past several layers of security, but their presence was now detected. Commander Mira Stark had scrambled her forces, and Earth's soldiers, equipped with cutting-edge weapons and armor, moved swiftly to intercept the intruders. In the main control room, Dr. Elijah Doom stood frozen in shock as alarms echoed through the facility. He had never imagined that the Axira would be bold enough to attempt a full-scale infiltration. His heart raced as he realized just how close they were to the voltaic core chamber. "Doctor," a soldier shouted as they rushed into the room, "we need to get you to safety. The Axira are after the schematics." Doom, though shaken, shook his head. "I can't leave. If they get to the core, they could destroy everything. We need to stop them before they reach the main chamber." The soldier, grim but understanding, nodded. "Then we'll defend it here, but you need to stay out of sight." Meanwhile, deep within the facility, the Axira operatives moved with cold precision. Their goal was clear: extract the core schematics and escape before Earth's forces could mount a full defense. Led by Commander Jarek, a ruthless strategist, the team had already taken out several guards and were now approaching the final layer of security. "We're close," Jarek whispered to his team. "Stay focused. The humans won't know what hit them." But as the Axira advanced, Earth's soldiers were ready. Commander Stark had anticipated this, and her forces had fortified the core chamber, blocking all access points. Stark herself led the charge, her sharp instincts and combat experience driving her to the front lines. "Hold the line," Stark shouted as she fired at the approaching Axira. "We can't let them through." The Axira, though outnumbered, fought with ruthless efficiency, using their cloaking technology to slip through Earth's defenses. For every soldier Stark's team took down, another Axira appeared from the shadows, their sleek armor shimmering in the dim light of the facility. As the battle raged on, Dr. Doom worked frantically in the control room, rerouting power to security systems and sealing off access points. Sweat beaded on his forehead as he watched the progress of the Axira operatives on the security monitors. They were getting closer and time was running out. In the midst of the chaos, Zoran Malik observed the unfolding battle from his ship in orbit. His cold, calculating eyes narrowed as he watched the Axira operatives struggle against Earth's defenders. This was not going according to plan. "Send reinforcements," Zoran ordered through clenched teeth. "We can't fail now." As the battle for the voltaic core system intensified, the fate of Earth and the galaxy hung in the balance. Would humanity's ingenuity and resilience be enough to protect their discovery, or would the Axira succeed in stealing the most powerful energy source in the universe? The cold, sterile halls of the energy facility were filled with the sharp echo of blaster fire and the distant hum of alarms. The Axira operatives, led by Commander Jarek, pushed forward with relentless determination. They had one objective: steal the schematics for the voltaic core system, the technology that had put Earth at the center of galactic politics. On the other side of the complex, Commander Mira Stark led Earth's defense forces with unyielding focus. Her soldiers, though under heavy fire, held their ground, determined to keep the Axira from breaching the core chamber. Stark had anticipated this attack, but the Axira's cloaking technology made them an unpredictable foe, capable of disappearing into thin air and reappearing behind enemy lines. As the firefight intensified, Lieutenant Pierce, Stark's second-in-command, barked orders into his comlink. Sector 4, lock down all access points. Sector 6, reinforce the eastern barricade. Stark stood at the heart of the chaos, her sharp eyes scanning the battlefield. She fired off a volley of shots, taking down a Axira operative who had slipped past the front line. "We can't let them through," she shouted. "Hold the line." Despite Earth's preparations, the Axira were making progress. Their elite operatives had managed to bypass several key security checkpoints, moving dangerously close to the core chamber. But Stark wasn't about to let them win. She knew that if the Axira got their hands on the core schematics, it could mean the end of Earth's sovereignty, and possibly the start of a war that would span the galaxy. Meanwhile, in the depths of the facility, Dr. Elijah Dune worked tirelessly in the control room. His fingers flew across the console, rerouting power to the facility's internal defense systems. Security drones were deployed to reinforce the soldiers, and Dune was desperately trying to raise the shielding around the core chamber. Sweat dripped down his brow as he muttered to himself, come on, we need more time." On the security monitors, Dune could see that Tyra pushing forward, inching closer to the core. His heart raced with fear, but he couldn't afford to panic. He knew that Earth's only chance of surviving this attack rested on his ability to outsmart the enemy. And so he focused, shutting out the sounds of battle and the looming threat of defeat. As the Axira approached the core, Jarek received new orders from Zoran Malik, that Axira leader. From his ship in orbit, Zoran's voice crackled through Jarek's communicator. "With sending reinforcements, you must retrieve the schematics at all costs. Earth cannot keep this power to themselves." Jarek's lips curled into a grim smile. "Understood. We'll have the core before they even know what hit them." But what Jarek didn't realize was that Earth's defenders were far from giving up. Stark's forces fought with everything they had, refusing to let the Axira claim victory. And at the same time, Arian Klin, the Valen diplomat who had been watching from the sidelines, decided it was time to act. Arian had always been a man of peace, but he wasn't naive. He knew that if the Axira succeeded in their mission, the delicate balance of power in the galaxy would be shattered. And so, with a heavy heart, he made the decision to intervene. Activating his communicator, Arian called Stark. "Commander, this is Arian Klin. I believe I can help." Stark's voice was tense as she replied, "What do you have in mind, diplomat? We're a little busy down here." "I have access to Valen cloaking technology," Arian explained. "It's more advanced than anything that Axira have. If I can get close enough, I can disrupt their systems and expose them to your soldiers." Stark hesitated for a moment. Trusting an outsider in the middle of a battle was risky, but they were running out of options. "Do it," she said, her voice firm. "But you'd better make it quick." Arian moved swiftly, his team of Valen engineers working alongside him. They hacked into the Axira's cloaking systems, targeting the operatives who were still hidden. Within moments, the Axira's once invisible forces flickered into view, their cloaks disabled by the Valen technology. "Now," Stark shouted, "take them down." Earth's soldiers unleashed a torrent of fire on the now visible Axira operatives. Without the advantage of stealth, the Axira found themselves overwhelmed by Earth's defenses. Commander Jarek, realizing that the tide was turning, signaled for a retreat. "Fall back," Jarek ordered, his voice filled with frustration. "We're pulling out." But it was too late. Stark's forces had closed in on them, cutting off their escape routes. Jarek and his remaining operatives were surrounded, their mission in shambles. Stark approached the Axira commander, her weapon trained on him. "It's over," she said coldly. "Surrender, or I'll make sure none of you leave here alive." Jarek clenched his jaw, his pride wounded. But he knew when he was beaten. Slowly, he lowered his weapon. "You may have won this battle, human, but this war is far from over." Stark's eyes narrowed. "We'll be ready." As Jarek and his operatives were taken into custody, Stark allowed herself a moment of relief. The immediate threat had been neutralized, but she knew that the Axira wouldn't stop. They would come back, and next time, they might be even more dangerous. Meanwhile, back in orbit, Zoran Malik seethed with anger. His plan had failed, but he wasn't done yet. As he watched that Axira ships retreat, he vowed that he would find another way to claim Earth's power. The battle had been won, but the war for Earth's core was only beginning. The aftermath of the Axora's failed infiltration left Earth's defenders both victorious and wary. The facility was secure for now, but Commander Mira Stark knew the real danger had only just begun. The Axora's bold attempt to seize the voltaic core system had shown just how valuable and dangerous Earth's new technology had become. Back at the energy facility, Dr. Elijah Doom was running diagnostics to ensure that the core had not been compromised during the battle. The thought of what could have happened if Axora had succeeded sent a shiver down his spine. He knew that the core's energy was more powerful than anything the galaxy had ever seen, and if it fell into the wrong hands, the consequences could be catastrophic. As Dune worked, Stark entered the control room, her face grim. "Doctor, we need to talk." Dune glanced up, his expression tired but focused. "I assume this is about the Axora." Stark nodded. "They'll be back, and next time they'll come with more firepower, more operatives. We need to be ready." Dune sighed, running a hand through his hair. "I've been thinking the same thing. The voltaic core system is too powerful to be kept in one place. We need to find a way to protect it, distribute it, maybe." Stark's eyes narrowed. "You're not seriously suggesting we share this technology with the galaxy?" Dune shook his head. "Not exactly. But if we can't control who has access to it, we can at least make sure it's not concentrated in one vulnerable location." Stark considered this for a moment. The thought of dispersing Earth's most valuable resource made her uneasy, but Dune had a point. That Axora wouldn't stop, and if Earth's defenses ever failed, the consequences would be devastating. Before she could respond, her communicator buzzed. Lieutenant Pierce's voice came through, urgent and breathless. "Commander, we've got a situation. There's been a breach in the outer security perimeter." Stark's heart skipped a beat. Another Axora attack. "Negative," Pierce replied. "It's something else. We're picking up unusual energy signatures, like nothing we've seen before." Dune's face paled. That could mean. Before he could finish, the facility's lights flickered, and a deep, ominous hum filled the air. Stark and Dune exchanged a glance of dread. Something was wrong with the core. "Come with me," Dune said, his voice tight with fear. "We need to get to the core chamber now." As they rushed through the halls, the hum grew louder, and the temperature in the facility began to rise. When they reached the core chamber, Dune immediately began scanning the system, his fingers flying across the console. "What's happening?" Stark demanded. "The core's energy levels are spiking," Dune replied, his voice strained. "I don't understand how, but it's destabilizing. If we don't fix this, it could go critical." Stark's mind raced. Critical, as in the core will release an energy pulse that could wipe out everything within a 100-mile radius, Doom said grimly. "And that's just the beginning. If the chain reaction isn't contained, it could destabilize the entire planet." Stark's blood ran cold as the gravity of the situation sank in. Earth's most powerful discovery, the very thing that was supposed to ensure humanity's future, now threatened to destroy it. "What do we do?" Stark demanded, her voice steady despite the rising panic in the room. Doom's fingers flew across the control panel as he furiously worked to contain the energy spikes. "I can try to stabilize it, but the core's becoming too volatile. If we can't bring it back under control, we may have to shut the entire system down." Stark stared at him, her mind racing. Shutting it down, would that stop the chain reaction? "It's our best shot," June replied. "But even that's risky. If we're too late, the shutdown could trigger the reaction instead of stopping it." As the temperature in the room continued to climb, Stark's comlink buzzed again. It was Lieutenant Pierce. "Commander, we're detecting an energy surge from the Axora ship in orbit," Pierce said. "They're charging some kind of weapon. I think they're trying to disrupt the core remotely." Stark clenched her fists. "Damn it, they're trying to force us into a disaster." She turned to Dune. "Can we override their interference?" Dune shook his head. Not from here. The core's already too unstable. Their attack is pushing it to the brink. A sense of dread settled over Stark as she realized the full scope of the situation. The Xyro weren't just after the core anymore. They were trying to destroy Earth itself. If the core went critical, the explosion wouldn't just devastate the planet, it would create a power vacuum in the galaxy, leaving Earth defenseless against any future attacks. "We don't have time to wait for a full shutdown," June muttered, his face pale. "We need to vent the energy manually before it reaches critical levels. If we don't, this entire facility, and everything within 100 miles, will be vaporized." Stark made a quick decision. How do we vent it? June hesitated. "We need to access the primary control node deep within the core chamber. But the radiation levels in there are off the charts. Anyone who goes in won't survive for more than a few minutes." Stark's jaw tightened. "How long do we have?" "Minutes," June replied, "at best." A heavy silence filled the room as Stark realized what needed to be done. There was no other option. If they didn't vent the core's energy, Earth would be doomed. But venting it meant sending someone to their death. "I'll go," Stark said, her voice steady. June looked up at her, horrified. "Commander, you can't." "There's no time to argue," Stark cut him off. "This is my responsibility. I'm not asking anyone else to do it." June hesitated, his mind racing for alternatives, but there were none. "I can guide you through the process," he said finally, his voice filled with reluctance. "But you'll only have a few minutes once you're inside. The radiation levels will be lethal." "I'll make it count," Stark said grimly. She turned to Pierce on the comlink. "Lieutenant, I'm heading into the core chamber to vent the energy. Keep that Xyra at bay for as long as you can. No matter what happens, Earth must survive." Pierce's voice was tight with emotion. "Understood, Commander. Good luck." Stark moved quickly, strapping on a radiation suit as June activated the chamber doors. As the heavy steel doors slid open with a hiss, the oppressive heat of the core chamber hit her like a wave. The air shimmered with energy, and the hum of the unstable core was deafening. Without hesitation, Stark stepped into the chamber, her body already beginning to feel the effects of the intense radiation. Her vision blurred slightly, but she pushed forward, focused on her mission. June's voice crackled in her earpiece. "You need to reach the control panel at the far end of the chamber. Once you're there, I'll guide you through the process of venting the energy." Stark's boots thudded against the metal floor as she made her way through the chamber. The heat was overwhelming, and every breath felt labored as the radiation began to take its toll on her body. Finally, she reached the control panel. Her hands were shaking as she pulled a lever to access the system, and June's voice came through again. "Okay, you need to input the override code and initiate the venting sequence manually. It's going to release a massive surge of energy, so brace yourself." Stark's fingers hovered over the panel as she entered the override code. Her vision swam, and she could feel the radiation eating away at her strength, but she pushed through the pain. With a deep breath, she hit the final button, and the entire chamber shook as the core began to vent its energy. A deafening roar filled the room as a blinding surge of light erupted from the core, shooting upward through the facility's venting towers and into the sky. Stark was thrown back by the force of the release, her body hitting the ground hard. For a moment, everything went still. The core had stabilized. The energy was vented, but Stark's body lay motionless on the floor of the chamber, her strength completely drained. Back in the control room, June watched the monitors, his heart pounding as he waited for a sign of success. When the readings finally showed that the core's energy levels had dropped, he let out a breath he hadn't realized he'd been holding. "We did it," June whispered, tears welling in his eyes. But the cost had been high. "Commander Stark," June called through the comlink, his voice trembling. "Mira, are you there?" There was no response. Hours after the emergency venting of the core, the energy facility was in lockdown, and the Xyra ships in orbit had retreated. Earth's defenders had won the day, but the victory felt hollow. Lieutenant Pierce stood beside Dr. Doone in the control room, both men staring at the monitors in silence. The core had been stabilized, but Commander Mira Stark, the woman who had led them through countless battles, was still unaccounted for. Pierce clenched his fists, his knuckles white. "We can't just leave her in there." Doone shook his head, his voice filled with sorrow. "The radiation, no one could survive in there for long." Despite the truth of Doone's words, Pierce couldn't shake the feeling of loss. Stark had always been the one to lead the charge, to sacrifice herself for the greater good. And now she had given everything to save Earth. But then a faint crackle came through the comms. "This is Stark." Her voice was weak, barely audible, but unmistakable. Pierce's eyes widened, and Doone practically jumped out of his chair. "Commander, you're alive." Stark's voice was ragged. "Barely, but the core is stable." Relief washed over both men, but they knew Stark wouldn't last much longer in the chamber. Without hesitation, Pierce rallied a team to extract her from the radiation zone. They moved quickly, reaching the core chamber and finding Stark lying near the control panel, barely conscious. Pierce knelt beside her, gently lifting her into his arms. "You did it, Commander. You saved us." Stark managed a weak smile, her eyes half closed. "Told you, I'd make it count." As they carried her back to the med bay, the reality of what had just happened began to settle in. Earth had faced annihilation, not only from the Axara, but from the very technology that had promised to secure its future. But thanks to Stark's sacrifice and Doone's quick thinking, disaster had been averted. Later, as Stark lay recovering in the med bay, Arian Klin, the Valen diplomat, visited her. His usual calm demeanor was replaced with genuine concern. "Commander Stark," Arian said softly, "your bravery saved not only your people but possibly the entire galaxy. The Valen will not forget this." Stark, still weak but conscious, nodded. "We need to find a way to keep the peace, Arian. This power, it's too dangerous to be fought over." Arian smiled gently. "I believe we can work together on that. The Valen are committed to ensuring this technology is used responsibly. We will help you protect it." The two of them exchanged a look of mutual respect. The battle for Earth's core had been won, but the war for peace was just beginning. Stark knew that humanity's future would be defined not just by its strength, but by its ability to forge alliances and protect the fragile balance of power in the galaxy. As the weeks passed, Earth began to rebuild and strengthen its defenses. The voltaic core system remained under heavy protection, and with the help of the Valen, new safeguards were put in place to prevent another crisis. The Axara, having failed to seize Earth's power, retreated to their homeworld, licking their wounds but undoubtedly planning their next move. But for now, humanity had survived. The power of Earth's core had proven irresistible to the galaxy's most dangerous factions, but it had also shown the strength, ingenuity, and resilience of its defenders. As Commander Mira Stark recovered, she knew that the fight for Earth's future was